For 1,000 years, India has lived under the shadow of humiliation. Invaders came, empires collapsed, colonial masters drained its wealth, and the world wrote India off as a land of poverty and chaos. For centuries, Indians were told they were weak, that they could never rise, that their destiny was to serve. But history has a strange way of keeping receipts. A sleeping civilization does not die, it gathers energy. It studies the mistakes, it hardens its spirit, and when the time comes, it does not rise quietly. It explodes into the world like a force of nature. That force is India today. Look at the numbers. In 1947, when India became independent, it was broken, bleeding, and bankrupt. The British had looted trillions of dollars of wealth. Literacy was at 12%, and life expectancy was 32 years. Today, India is the fifth largest economy on Earth, adding $1 trillion to its GDP every few years. By 2030, it will overtake Germany and Japan. This is not just economic growth, this is a civilizational revenge story. Every percentage point of growth is a punch against the idea that India was destined to stay poor. But here's what shocks the world. India's rise is not powered by oil like the Middle East, not by authoritarian control like China. It is powered by 1.4 billion people competing, creating, dreaming, and refusing to quit. No central plan, no dictator forcing obedience, just raw human ambition unleashed. That's why the West doesn't know how to deal with India. You can sanction a government, you cannot sanction a billion entrepreneurs. This awakening is not just economic, it is psychological. For decades, Indians carried a colonial hangover, a belief that the West was superior. That is dead. A new generation has grown up that is not begging for approval, it is demanding respect. They don't dream of leaving India anymore, they dream of making India the place everyone wants to come to. And here's the truth no one wants to admit. When 1 billion people start believing in themselves, they become unstoppable. Think about the cycles of history. Greece had its time, Rome had its time, Britain had its time, America had its time. Civilizations rise and fall. India had its time once when it was 25% of the world's economy, when the world came to learn from Nalanda, when trade routes ran through its lands. That was before it fell asleep, but now the alarm has rung, the eyes have opened. And when a civilization with 5,000 years of knowledge, culture, and resilience wakes up, it does not compete, it dominates. India is not becoming a superpower, it is returning to where it belongs. The question is not if India will lead, but whether the world is ready for the shockwave that is coming. Every empire in history has been built on the backs of the young. Youth is energy, youth is ambition, youth is hunger, and India has more of it than any nation on earth. This is not a statistic, this is a weapon. While the world is aging, India is getting younger. The average age in Japan is 49. In Europe it's 44, in China it's 39, in India just 28. That means while the world struggles with empty classrooms, India's classrooms are bursting with life. While the West fights to pay pensions for a retiring population, India's workforce is expanding by millions every year. This is not a small advantage. This is destiny being rewritten in real time. Do you know what it means when 65% of your population is under 35? It means innovation on steroids. It means a workforce that doesn't fear technology but masters it. It means a generation that was born with smartphones in their hands, not typewriters on their desks. Will take its jobs to feel moat, it capable. How can we lead I? That's the difference between a civilization preparing for the future and a civilization terrified of it. But let's go deeper. A young population is not just a statistic. It is a mindset. Youth doesn't settle. Youth doesn't compromise. Youth doesn't accept excuses. It fights, it builds, it breaks rules. That's why in every global company today, from Silicon Valley to Singapore, you find Indian CEO. Why? Because they grew up in a country where survival demanded creativity, where nothing was given, so everything had to be earned. That hunger, multiplied by 1.4 billion, is the nuclear reactor of India's rise, and here's the shocking part. This demographic weapon is something no one can copy. You can't manufacture young people in a lab. You can't fast forward your population. If you miss the demographic bus, you missed it forever. China knows this. Its one-child policy created a time bomb. In 10 years, China will have more old people than any country in history. Who will power its factories? Who will drive its innovation? Meanwhile, India will be adding millions of workers, millions of thinkers, millions of dreamers every single year. And this is not just about numbers, it's about the psychology of ambition. Every young Indian today has a phone in their hand. They can see the world. They can see how the richest live, how the best perform, and they're not intimidated, they're inspired. They don't say, "We can't have this." They say, "Why not us?" That single question, "Why not us?" is the spark that burns down the walls of limitation. The truth is simple. The future belongs to the young, and India owns the future because it owns the youth. While the world is aging, India is only getting started, and when that generation decides to rise, there is no force on earth that can stop them. There was a time when India was known for outsourcing. The world saw it as the back office of technology, a place where code was written cheaply, where ideas created elsewhere was simply executed. That era is over. India is no longer a follower. It is no longer satisfied with doing the work for someone else's dream. It is now creating the dream, and this transformation is not gradual, it's an earthquake. Look at what's happening. India produces more engineers than the entire population of some countries. Every year, 1.5 million engineers graduate, and they are not sitting idle. They are building. Startups are exploding across the country, over 10,000 registered startups and counting. Unicorns, startups valued at over $1 billion, are being born in India at a speed that shocks the West. And these are not clones anymore. These are original ideas solving Indian problems, payment systems like UPI that even the U.S. envies, health tech platforms that bring doctors to remote villages, and AI innovations built to scale for 1 billion people. Understand the scale here. When India innovates, it doesn't innovate for a few million, it innovates for 1 billion. That forces solutions to be affordable, scalable, and resilient. What works in India can work anywhere, but what works elsewhere often fails in India. That is why global companies test their toughest strategies in India, because if they survive here, they can survive anywhere. India is not a consumer market anymore, it's a laboratory for the future. And let's not forget the giants India has already produced. Think of the CEO leading Google, Microsoft, Adobe, IBM. Why do Indians dominate global tech leadership? Because they know how to build under pressure, they know how to deliver with limited resources, they are not entitled, they are hungry. That hunger, when combined with access to capital, infrastructure, and a growing ecosystem, becomes unstoppable. But here is what truly shocks the world. India is leaping over stages of development. While the West debates about digital banking, India went cashless with UPI in a few years. While developed nations still write checks, Indian street vendors accept QR payments. While others argue about the ethics of AI, Indian engineers are building it for real-world problems: education, healthcare, agriculture. This is not just catching up, this is overtaking. The narrative that India is only a service provider is dead. The new reality: India is the service, the product, and the platform. It is where ideas are born, scaled, and exported. It is moving from being the world's back office to the world's innovation hub. And when 1 billion brains start thinking, the world should be afraid, not because India will destroy, but because it will dominate. The future is not being built in Silicon Valley alone. It is being coded in Bengaluru, designed in Hyderabad, tested in Pune, and deployed across the globe. This is the innovation surge, and it is unstoppable. If power in the 21st century is a chessboard, then geography is the position of your pieces. And India's position, it is the queen on the board. Few people understand this, but geography has always decided who rules the world. Rome dominated because of the Mediterranean. Britain controlled the seas, so it controlled trade. The United States has two oceans protecting it, and highways for trade on both sides. That's its advantage. Now, look at India. India sits between the two most important regions of the world, the Middle East and East Asia. To the west, the Middle East holds energy. To the east, East Asia holds technology and manufacturing. And in the center, like a bridge, stands India. Every major shipping route, every energy pipeline, every data cable that connects these regions must pass near India. Whoever controls this region does not just control land, they control the arteries of global trade. The Indian Ocean alone carries 80% of the world's maritime oil trade. And what is at the heart of the Indian Ocean? India. It has 7,500 kilometers of coastline and a navy that is expanding faster than anyone expected. Why is this important? Because wars are not fought only on land anymore, they are fought on supply chains. If you can choke a supply chain, you can break an economy. And India is positioning itself to never be choked and always hold leverage. Now, look at the north, Himalayas, the greatest natural fortress on earth. No army can cross those mountains easily. That is why India has never been fully conquered after the age of gunpowder, except by the British, who came by sea. Geography gives India defense, but it also gives offense through connectivity. India has access to Central Asia, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia. It is part of trade routes old and new, from the ancient Silk Road to the modern international north-south transport corridor. And with projects like Chabahar and its growing influence in the Indian Ocean, India is not just a participant in trade, it is a gatekeeper. Now think about the future. The global center of gravity is shifting to the Indo-Pacific. Every major power, America, China, Europe, calls it the most important region of the 21st century. Why? Because this is where the markets are, this is where the people are, and this is where the shipping routes are. And what is at the heart of the Indo-Pacific? India. So when you see the map, don't just see land and water, see power. See the ability to project influence in every direction. See the ability to secure trade, energy, and data. See the ability to stand as a wall against aggression and a bridge for cooperation. That is India's geography. It is not an accident, it is destiny carved into the earth, and destiny, when combined with ambition, creates superpowers. A nation does not become a superpower by technology alone. It needs something deeper, a spine that cannot be broken, a soul that cannot be crushed. India has that. For 1,000 years, this land was invaded, plundered, divided, and ruled. Empires came and went, Persians, Turks, Mughals, British. They burned cities, destroyed temples, erased libraries, and still India survived. Not just survived, it absorbed, adapted, and stood up again. Do you know what that means? It means India is indestructible. Why? Because its strength is not in one king or one government. Its strength is in its culture, its philosophy, its values that run deeper than any sword or bullet can reach. This is a land where people were writing mathematics when the world was learning to count, where the concept of zero was born, where medicine like Ayurveda flourished before Europe knew what surgery was. This is a land that produced epics like the Mahabharata, 1,00,000 verses of wisdom, and universities like Nalanda when much of the world lived in caves. That heritage never died. It went underground during slavery, but now it is rising again. Think about it. Nations that lose their cultural identity collapse from within. Look at history. Rome fell not because of invasion, but because its culture decayed. The British Empire vanished because it lost moral authority, but India, despite every blow, it kept its language, its festivals, its traditions, its spiritual depth. It kept chanting, kept creating, kept believing. That is why you can enslave India, but you can never own it. You can take its wealth, but not its will, and here's the truth most people ignore. India's culture is not backward, it is the most future, eddy force on earth. Why? Because it values family when the world is breaking apart. It values discipline when the world is drowning in chaos. It teaches resilience through stories that have survived millennia. It creates unity in diversity. 4 billion people, thousands of languages, hundreds of religions, yet one flag. That is not weakness, that is strength no empire can match. Today, this cultural spine is powering India's confidence. The new generation is not ashamed of its identity, it is proud of it. It wears tradition like armor and technology like a sword. It knows that yoga and AI can coexist, that Sanskrit and space science can belong to the same civilization. This is not a clash between old and new, this is a fusion, and when culture fuses with innovation, the result is unstoppable. India's rise is not just an economic phenomenon, it is a civilizational awakening. A culture that refused to break is now ready to lead. And here is the final shock: superpowers rise and fall, but a civilization that has lasted 5,000 years, it doesn't just rise, it reigns, and India is ready to reign again.